Hello, sweet friends. Welcome back to Purpose, Profit, and Healing, the space where we blend performance science, ancient wisdom, and deep healing to help conscious leaders and entrepreneurs just like you create the success you desire without sacrificing your values. Today, I am sharing a brand new framework that I developed to help my clients move past limiting beliefs. So, limiting beliefs are those little quiet, sneaky thoughts that sabotage your biggest visions before they even leave your brain. So, if you have ever felt stuck, like you're doing all of the right things, taking all the right actions, but not getting the results you want, chances are that there is a belief running in the background that is not serving you. And here's the thing, one of the biggest takeaways of today's episode: you cannot create a new outcome with the same belief system that created your current reality. You cannot create a new outcome with the same belief system that created your current reality. Something has to shift internally for the external to also change. There's a really famous quote by Albert Einstein that says, we cannot solve a problem with the same level of consciousness that created it. We can't solve a problem with the same level of consciousness that created it. Consciousness is just our thoughts. So if you are trying to create new results in your life, in your business, in your teams, and you are being stuck in the same place, it's likely because you have not changed the thoughts inside. All right, so let's dive in. Today, we are going to talk about what limiting beliefs are, why they are dangerous and we don't want them, and then I'm going to teach you my framework to move past them. Okay, so limiting beliefs, again, are thoughts that we hold as a truth that keeps us playing small. So, limiting beliefs often form early from family, culture, religion, past experiences, authority figures in our lives, and they shape how we see ourselves and how we see the world. So for leaders and for entrepreneurs, it might sound something like, I need to prove I belong here, or I need to prove myself, or I don't have time to rest, or I can't charge that much, or who am I to do this? That's a really big popular one. Who do I think I am? Now, these beliefs are wired into our brain through a process called emotional conditioning. So, when we experience something new, whether it's an emotion, a thought, and it's constantly repeated, what happens is the brain forms a very strong connection between the two neurons. Neurons are the cells in the brain. So, those two neurons create a pathway. So, they signal to each other, and the more that we practice that same thought or that same belief, the stronger that pathway becomes. So initially, that pathway is kind of like just a dirt road the first time you hear it. But the more and more it gets repeated, the more and more you hear it, that becomes a super highway. And that is when it becomes a belief. That is why these beliefs can feel so true, even when they are not. And this is really important here. Some of the beliefs we have, we hold on to them as deep truths, and they color the way we perceive the world around us, and they color our own identity, even when they're not true. It's just something we've been practicing for a long time. And one of the worst parts of these limiting beliefs is that they often operate silently. We don't always know that that's what's happening because they are deep in our subconscious. So we don't even realize we are experiencing them or living by them. We just all we see is the outside effects, the external effects, the results that we don't like. That's all we see. So, as you can see, why they're dangerous because they might seem like just mental clutter, but they have real consequences. These limiting beliefs is why we sometimes overwork, which leads to burnout, why we don't feel like we belong or we feel inadequate, and it causes imposter syndrome. They cause us to say yes to things even when we are totally overburdened already and we really want to say no. And they lead to resentment and just poor outcomes all around. And they block us from the very things that we say we want. What do we want to create? We want impact. We want freedom in our lives. We want to have an expansive life. We want more time back. We want to create conscious wealth. But we have all of these limiting beliefs getting in the way, blocking us from creating what we really want. So, how do we move beyond them? Okay, well, this is the good news. The good news is that you can actually move beyond them. You can change any belief that is not serving you. You have the power to change that. You guys have all heard Our brain is plastic, neuroplasticity. That means our brain is plastic, which means our brains can shift, they can shape, they can mold based on whatever we want to practice, based on whatever we want to believe. And here, my friends, is where my framework comes in. So I'm going to teach you my framework. It's a 3-part framework. It's super simple to practice. It's one of those things that's simple, but not always easy, but at least you will now have it in your awareness. So my invitation to you is learn it and then see in your life where you're not getting the results you want and where you can start practicing it. Okay, so my framework I call the 3 A's. The first A is awareness. Now, awareness is simply knowing and being aware of the belief that you have, because you can't change something that you have not yet named. You can't change something you're not even aware of. So the step 1 in changing any limiting belief and evolving from any limiting belief is having awareness that it even exists. So you want to start noticing your inner dialogue, and you can ask yourself questions like, I wonder why I keep doing this. Or what is it that I'm actually avoiding? Or what do I believe will happen if I stop doing whatever it is that you don't want to do anymore? And here's one of my favorite thoughts. Who would I be without this thought? Now, the power of awareness, this first step, is that it activates your prefrontal cortex. Now, the prefrontal cortex is where our conscious choice lives. It's the part of our brain that separates us from all other mammals. And what it does when it activates the prefrontal cortex is that it's actually calming down the amygdala. There's a study that shows that when you name the belief or even name the emotion that that belief brings up for you, it's activating your prefrontal cortex. And your prefrontal cortex has this reverse, it works on the amygdala, which is our fear response, the fear part of the brain, via this negative feedback loop. So it actually slows down, calms down, turns off the amygdala when it's activated. So whenever you have awareness, it actually activates your prefrontal cortex, allows you, puts you back into the seat of power, of choice, of agency, and it keeps you from running on autopilot. Okay, so that's A, awareness. Have awareness into the limiting belief or even the result or the thought or the feeling that is creating the results that you don't want. Okay. Step 2. So first is awareness. The second A is acceptance. Now, I want you to be gentle with yourself when you're following the acceptance, because acceptance means that you allow the truth to surface. You allow yourself to be honest with yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. Maybe that belief that you've been thinking for a very long time and practicing for a long time, maybe the way you've always operated is no longer serving you. And if that's the case, that's okay. Now, this can be really uncomfortable because it is challenging your identity, who you know yourself to be. And that creates cognitive dissonance and can be really uncomfortable. But I want you to remember that just because you accept the belief for what it is, it doesn't mean you have to agree with the belief. It just means that you're acknowledging what you have been thinking for a very long time without judgment. This is powerful because the opposite of acceptance is essentially resistance. And Carl Jung, famous old school psychologist, said, what you resist will persist. So the more you resist this belief, the more you resist that this could even be true, the longer, the stronger it will be. So once you accept it, you make room, you're essentially neutralizing it. You're making room for it to be neutralized and you can move away from it. One thing that is really helpful here that I have come to learn for myself, and I teach my students all the time, is when you're in this A part, the acceptance part, you want to practice what I call compassionate curiosity. A very, very dear friend of mine calls it divine curiosity, because when you can see what's coming up for you and be curious about it, for example, you can offer yourself questions like, wow, I wonder how long I've believed this. Or, wow, isn't this interesting? I wonder where I learned this or who taught me this. One thing I like to say to myself is, how fascinating. Isn't this so fascinating that I've been thinking this all my life? Or I've believed this for so long? When you can offer yourself that level of curiosity, what you notice is you move away from judgment. And now you're just the objective observer, observing whatever thought it was that you've been thinking. Now, I don't want you to rush this part. Don't rush it. Just sit with it for a little bit. Sit in the discomfort with a lot of compassion and kindness for yourself, and know that true growth begins when you can sit with the discomfort. You don't have to rush past it, and you can start accepting it for what it is. True growth begins when we stop resisting what is. All right, now the last A. The last A is ascension. And here is where the transformation happens. You've become aware of what you've been believing. You accept it, even though it makes you uncomfortable, even though it's pushing against your identity. You accept it for what is, and now you can ascend above it. Now, once you've named the belief and accepted it, and you are now ready to shift and rise above it, you get to choose a new thought. And here you want to be very intentional about what you choose. Because when you can accept what you've been thinking for a long time, and you can, what ends up happening is you want to think something new. If you don't choose a new thought intentionally yourself, you will create a vacuum, and then a new thought will be created unintentionally, which means out of your subconscious, based on old wiring, old habits, a new thought will be created for you. But you don't want that to happen. You want to be in charge of what you think and feel. You want to be in charge of your thought. So you can rise above it by choosing a thought that you want. Let me give you some examples here. So, a good thing to ask yourself is, what new belief will give me the results that I want? What new belief will liberate me? So, for example, we can try this one. A lot of my clients are incredibly busy, and they have equated busy with being productive. And so they have a thought that being busy means I'm being productive. And instead, what does that do? It means that they're constantly busy, constantly overworking, and they never rest. So instead, a thought that you can practice, if this one resonates with you, is, I am most productive when I am present and intentional. Here's another one that I hear a lot from my clients. I have to work really hard to be successful. I have to work really hard to be successful. What does that mean? It means that the super strong work ethic that a lot of us have, which is an incredible blessing, we go all the way to the toxic side of that and are pushing ourselves harder and harder and harder. And any obstacle coming in our way, we think the answer is to work harder. But if you have noticed that your world around you, if you don't have the results you want, if you've been pushing yourself so hard and you're not getting the results you want in all areas of your life, perhaps this thought is no longer serving you. So instead, you might want to try, instead of I have to work hard to be successful, you might want to try, my success comes from being effective. My success comes from being effective, not from working hard, not from being busy, but from being effective. Another one that I often see is my clients have a tough time resting or just pausing for a second or just taking a break. And they have thoughts like, I can't stop or I'll fall behind, or if I rest, I'll be lazy, or I'll feel guilty if I'm resting. All of those thoughts are likely not giving you the results you want. They're probably causing you to be burnt out, exhausted, overwork. So instead, you can try a thought like, rest helps me lead from clarity and vision. Resting is healthy. Intentional resting is healthy. Let's see. Another one that I often hear is the story with time. I don't have time for myself. So if that is one you have, which is a really popular one, I don't have time for myself. I want you to just think and come up with an answer for yourself. What what thought is going to give you the results you want? For example, I am worthy of my own time, or having time for myself is sacred, or I protect my sacred energy when I give myself the time that I need. Whatever it is that you need there, I want you to go ahead and use it. Okay, so again, what we covered today is limiting beliefs, what they are. Again, limiting beliefs are thoughts that we've been thinking for a very long time that is not giving us the results that we want in life. We think they are beliefs because we've been practicing them for a long time. And when you practice something for a long time, you strengthen the neural connections, the neural pathways, and then it just becomes like certainty for you. And then you're looking everywhere for evidence that what you believe is true. Confirmation bias, you guys have all heard of that. That's how beliefs are formed. Something that somebody told us for a very long time, like you're really bad at math or you're really bad at numbers. And they just said it to you so many times that now you believe it. And this is really important because most of us are walking around the world and never questioning any of the beliefs that we have. And we keep coming up against the same obstacles. We're not getting the results we want. And then we victimize ourselves like it's not my fault, it's their fault, or I just have too much time, or this or that. But we have choice, we have agency, we are in the driver's seat. So if there is a result in your life that you don't like, it's likely because there's a belief behind there that is not serving you any longer. And these are the beliefs that we need to identify and we need to bring up to your awareness, your conscious awareness, because if we don't, they're just in your subconscious running the show. So here's my invitation to you today. What is the limiting belief today that is giving you results that you are not serving you? What limiting belief are you ready to retire? What truth are you ready to replace it with? What belief do you want to replace it with that's going to give you the results that you do want in life? Remember the 3 A's: awareness. First step is always to be aware. Number 2, acceptance. Again, acceptance doesn't mean that you agree. It just means that you are no longer going to resist it to be true. I just accept the fact that for a long time, I was told that I wasn't as smart as XYZ. So no wonder I feel like an imposter there. Okay, so acceptance. And then 3, ascension. You rise above it. Once you have awareness, you've accepted it, you can rise above it by creating a thought that does serve you. 3 simple steps, 1 powerful shift. All right, sweet friends, this is the type of work that I do with all of my clients because it's not just about building businesses or teams or having these professional results in life. It's about becoming the person that you want to become, the person that creates the level of impact, the level of purpose, that lives a life aligned with the values that you want to live. So if this resonated with you, I would love for you to just take a moment and reflect. And when you are ready to go deeper, I would love to support you. All right, sweet friends, until next time, I will see you next week. Adios.